I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Today is Friday, July 8th, 2022. Fridays, we do the Healing Circle. I'm pleased to be here with my companions, my colleagues and friends, Dr. Bravada Garrett Akinsanya, leader of the African American Child Wellness Institute, principal at Brakins Consulting and Psychological Services, Dr. Oliver Williams, a noted social worker and teacher at University of Minnesota, the founder of the Institute on, give me the name, Dr. Williams.
Domestic violence in the African American community, but that was back in 2017.
Right. But it's a major work. And then Brenda Lau Gray is here, my writing colleague, an author, a writer, and leader in community, educator. Brenda, good to see you.
Good to see everyone.
Okay,
glad
great.
to be here on this side of the dirt.
That's right.
We're joined now by our friend Deborah Watts, who leads the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation. Deborah, good to see you, and thank you for joining the program.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're going to start off like we normally do with the grounding and a setting of the stage and the topic with Dr. Bravada Garrett Akinsanya. Dr. B, I'm passing the talking stick to you.
Thank you, Brother Al, and thank you for permission to speak. As an African people, we first want to acknowledge the land that we stand on, that we sit on, that we work on, that was nurtured by our indigenous brothers and sisters, specifically Lakota people who settled this land, and we're honored to continue to be on it, and the grace that comes from their love for the land that allows us to work on it. I also want to acknowledge, of course, our elders on whose shoulders we stand. We as an African people, we honor our elders because they hold wisdom and they also are closest to our ancestors. And we honor our ancestors because they are deeply, deeply rooted in our spirit, and they are the closest to our Creator God. So in this space, we work in circle. African people believe in sharing power. And in the process of sharing power, when we are in circle, everyone, no matter who you are, has an access, equal access to the center, which is the place of power. So as we talk today, we use traditional mechanisms that are affiliated with safety in our group. Being grounded, noticing where your feet are, noticing where you are sitting in your room, looking to the right and the left, and making sure and looking behind you to feel safe in your environment. Because when we do very, very deep and hard things, we need to know that we're solidly placed. In the Yoruba tribe, from which my husband and my brother Al come from, in the Yoruba tribe, we really believe that when we call out names, every time we call out a name, the spirit of that person comes to us. That spirit and that name, every hope and dream that gives us the courage to move forward. So when we say names, we say Ashe. And today, because Sister Watts is here, I want to start this just brief libation of gratitude as we say the name, and we say Ashe when we hear them. We say the name, we speak the name of Emmitt Till, and I ask you to say Ashe.
Ashe.
And I speak the name of Sister Deborah Watts, who brings that spirit and makes it and keeps it alive in our community and in our world. And I say Deborah Watts, and together I ask us to say Ashe.
Ashe.
Brother Oliver Williams, who comes with a history of overcoming personally and professionally, to remind us that domestic violence not just happens in our homes, but in our domicile of the United States of America. And in his name, I say Oliver Williams and ask you to say Ashe.
Ashe.
And I also remember that in every great place throughout history, there have always been those who wrote it down, who have kept the record, the ones who are considered the village listeners, because they listen with a pure heart. They take what they use and they create record. Being a village record keeper, who writes, comments, and empowers us into a future existence. I call the name of Sister Brenda Loud Gray, and I ask us to say Ashe,
Shay.
Ashe. And finally, I call the name of our brother Al McFarlane, who in his leadership creates voice for all people. People of color are elevated. People of poverty are elevated. People who walk as brothers and sisters on this whole planet are elevated because of his skillful ability to be inclusive, his welcoming of all folks at the table and in the circle. We honor our elder, our brother, our king in this space, our great leader, Dr. Brother Al McFarlane, and I ask you to say Ashe. 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 So I give the talking stick back to you, Brother Al. Today our topic as we continue is we can't go nowhere. Looking at African Americans and healing in the face of violence. And I pass the talking stick to Brother Al.
When I thank you, Dr. B, thank you all of us for being here, and thanks to those who are listening. You know, if you are tuned in anywhere across social media, Facebook or YouTube, for Black Press USA or the Insight News or Al McFarlane Facebook pages, take a minute to share the conversation, to let people know that you're here. Let us know that you're here by dropping a note in the chat. And most of all, like, subscribe, and share. Help us grow this conversation, this program, this connectivity. We have a great time, and we enlighten each other and enliven each other, we quicken each other each time we come together. And I think it's a wonderful thing. We want you to be part of that process and help grow it. The topic is a good topic because, Dr. B, I was thinking about the difference that I see all the time when I watch this horrific murderous scene in Highland Park, I think it was, Illinois, outside of Chicago, earlier in the week. And here's a person who murders 7 people that we know of right now and shoots, wounds over 30. Some of them may die, many are in critical condition, and is apprehended later. They say his getaway was changing into an outfit that he walked through the neighborhood like he was one of the ones affected by the mayhem that he himself created, blending in. And that's amazing, number one. But finally stopped on his way to do more killing in I think the Madison area. That's what his intention was. So I think about that, all the loss of life, but how gently he was handled when he was apprehended. And I compare that to the brother who was being stopped. He's a DoorDash driver in Ohio, I think, and being stopped on a traffic situation. And at some point in time, tried to flee the police, fled his car, but as a consequence, was felled by a what's the right word? A torrent of bullets, over 90 bullets fired at him, 60 bullets in his body, through his body. And what's the difference? How is it that a person walking away from the law and who is not armed gets shot 90 times, and the person that kills 7 people and wounds 30 or 40 more is apprehended in a way that's gentle and caring? So that's how I'm interpreting our conversation. But that leads me back to Sister Deborah. And I can't get over the story of Emmitt Till. And that's one of many stories, but that is one that has significance because it's one of the turning points in our becoming more aware of how common this disparity, this disdain for Black life is in the culture that we are subjected to. I was going to say we're part of, but we're really subjects of. And so with that, I want to pass the talking stick to Sister Deborah Watts. Sister Deborah, and I always want to thank you for being the force and the rock and the warrior, the fierce leader that you have been and are. I applaud you. I even thought about this. I need to confess that there were times that I didn't really believe that you were going to be successful in prosecuting, bringing public awareness. I always knew you were right, but it just seemed like it was impossible. And I have to tell you that, and I'm confessing to you in this process that even I didn't have the, whatever the right word is, to fully stand with you all the time. There were times when I thought, you're just out there, and nothing was going to come of this. I was wrong. And I'm so glad that I was wrong. I'm so glad that you probably met a million people like me who theoretically got it, and who historically got it, and who politically got it. But there was something missing at some point in time. Something waned and needed to come back again. And you've stood the course, and you are resurfacing in all of us that will, that commitment, that original fire that called us and our attention to resisting and calling for justice in the first place. So, sister, I'm going to pass the talking stick to you.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. And Al, you've been pretty consistent in inviting me to this space. And so I truly appreciate it, because that doesn't happen very often. It's happening often now.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. This has been a journey. And it's not been just my journey. It's been the journey of Mamie Till Mobley, Emmitt's mother, who in 1955 summoned America to bear witness to her son's body. He was a 14-year-old child that was brutally murdered in 1955. And she knew no one would believe her unless he had the media take pictures, magazines, and others. She allowed them, I think, permission to open up that casket so that our minds would be opened up and the world would open up to the kind of hatred and white supremacist behaviors that were taking place. And the terror, the kind of terror that was well before Emmitt, but that included her son. And it even woke her up and understanding what her responsibility was. So I cannot ever take any credit for what she started, but as a promise to her, I did promise that I would do whatever I could. I had no idea what it might be. And so we started the Emmitt Till Legacy Foundation 2 years after she passed on. She passed on in 2003. Emmitt's case was reopened in 2004. And we launched on the 50th anniversary of Emmitt's murder in Chicago in 2005. But thank you. And thank you for acknowledging what our obstacles have been. And it's human. It's human nature for people to say, okay, this is 67 years now, 67 years.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you doing? Just well enough alone. And well enough has not happened as far as I'm concerned. And I think for our country. And so by the grace of higher powers than me and the Holy Spirit, have we been able to withstand. And that was what brought Mamie forward too. So I just have to thank our ancestors and thank a higher power for giving us the courage and the willingness to move things forward without looking to the left or right or believing. We had to have a belief that something would happen. And that something is just a continuation of the investigation that took place, that the federal government didn't believe it either, Al. Local government didn't believe it. We were able to on June 21st, find a warrant that was for the arrest of Carolyn Bryant Donham, or Mrs. Roy Bryant, that was never served. So that's a piece of evidence that we are asking our federal government, along with the local authorities in Mississippi, to bring forward first to serve the warrant, to execute the warrant, and then to, how can I say this? Do the right thing. I don't think we're asking anything that any other family would not ask for or would expect. We want justice to be served. And so we've certified copies of that warrant. We've given it to the appropriate authorities, and we're asking the sheriff, the appropriate sheriff there, to execute the warrant. We're asking the district attorney, D.A. Richardson out of Mississippi, to impanel a new grand jury, move forward with the conviction, because Carolyn Bryant Donham, Mrs. Roy Bryant, is culpable in the kidnapping and the murder of a 14-year-old child, Emmitt Lewis.
She was in the car, right? She was the woman in the car, in the truck when they picked up Emmitt from your grandfather's or your uncle's house?
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. My great grandfather and Emmitt's great grandfather were brothers. Joe, my great grandfather, Emmitt's grandfather is George Smith.
Okay.
They're brothers. And so Emmitt is my cousin.
Okay.
And the home where he was visiting was a great uncle of his, Mr. Wright, Mose Wright. Mose Wright was married to Emmitt's great aunt, Elizabeth, who's my great grandfather's niece. So that's kind of how that lineage is. But Carolyn Bryant is culpable. There are so many ways that she has been implicated, so many ways that she is an accomplice. There were 2 young men that were brought to her that night ahead of Emmitt, and they were beat up. She denied, she said, no, that's not them. And they were let go. But Emmitt was kidnapped, lynched, tortured, and with a 75-pound cotton gin fan tied around his neck, shot in the head, and then thrown into the Black Bayou, and then later to his body moved down that river to the Tallahatchie River. So she's culpable, and there's the FBI reports indicate her culpability, her admissions. Also, the movies that are out, The Untold Story of Emmitt Lewis Till, identifies her and other, even African Americans, unfortunately, that were forced to participate in the kidnapping and murder of Emmitt. But Carolyn Bryant Donham is the last living known accomplice that needs to be brought to justice. And Al, I must say this, we're not doing any of this with malice or hatred or vengeance in our heart at all. Mamie didn't do it, and nor are we. This is about justice. It's about us expecting our federal government, our local government authorities to do the right thing. So we are not accepting this 2 types of justice. We're not accepting that. We know that it happens, but in this case, we have to push forward and make clear our expectations. But yes, Carolyn Bryant Donham is culpable on so many levels, not just identifying him that evening, which the evidence points to her doing that. And then also even later on trial, identifying that he was a sexual predator, if you will. So all of that just proves her admission. And later I'm going to find the affidavit I can read that actually identifies her in the. So.
Great, please do. So tell us again about finding the document, the process of how that warrant surfaced. I read some of it, but better to hear from you.
Yes, well, and we issued that statement because I'll tell you, Al, this is an emotional time for us. It's very challenging. And this is a part of a continuation of investigation. We had heard all along from the FBI investigator that there's a warrant for her arrest that was never served. We heard that from the filmmaker, Keith Beauchamp. But what we didn't hear was that anyone would look for it, or that it was, searched for, that anyone searched for it, or that it could possibly be used as evidence. Because the county where that warrant was served is LaFleur County, and all of the murder trial happened in another county. So Emmitt's case is not this black and white, easy, case to uncover and solve. So, and we're not attorneys, we're just curious, and we just have asked questions.
Mhm.
So when one of our ambassadors said, Deborah, warrants don't expire. What do you think about us finding that warrant in LaFleur County? And I was like, no one's ever looked there, have they? So we had a plan.
What's the main town in LaFleur County?
It's in Greenwood, Mississippi.
Greenwood. Okay, that's right. Okay.
In the Delta area there.
Mhm.
So to make a long story short, we met with the FBI, DOJ, and Dwayne Richardson March 8th. And after that meeting, and we didn't get very far with it, but we promised them we would continue to search for evidence and proof.
Describe the meeting. Describe what happened at the meeting. I mean, why did the meeting take place? And describe kind of how the meeting transpired.
Well, I'll tell you, when the DOJ closed their investigation December 6, 2021, there were some people that were excluded from that meeting. And so those people that were excluded from the meeting requested a second meeting with those same individuals. And we were granted that meeting on March 8th.
Okay.
And in that meeting, we presented our concerns. There was a repeat of the published report that the Department of Justice had released. And we, at that time, just said, that sounds all fine and dandy, but this case is not closed. This is a murder case. There's no statute of limitations on murder. That was our message back to them. And they said, there's nothing else we can do. There's, unless you come up with new evidence. So that was our go-to, to try to find whatever we could. And we promised them that we would be back and that we would continue to expect Dwayne Richardson to have the will and the courage to do his job. And so that's what happened at that meeting. And so right after that, one of our ambassadors, and Keith Beauchamp, in March, they went to the courthouse and they said, well, let's see what's going on here. So they went at the direction of an attorney extraordinaire. She's like a warrior, civil rights warrior. Jaribu Hill. I don't know if you know about her, but Google her, everybody.
What's her name again?
Her name is Jaribu Hill, Jaribu
Okay.
Hill. She is our family counsel and attorney. But
maybe you can arrange for us to interview her down the road sometime. I'd love to do that.
I'd love to. She's a part of our team.
Okay.
But she, has been working with our family. She worked with Simeon Wright, who was Mose Wright's son initially. Keith Beauchamp introduced the two of them, and she was the family counsel. But he unfortunately died after the case was actually reinvestigated in 2017. He died in September of 2017, unfortunately. But we promised him we would keep going too. But so they granted the access by the circuit clerk to the courthouse to look for the file. So they looked up in the jail, they looked other places, and then they reported back and said, hey, we couldn't find anything. So that was our ambassador and Keith Beauchamp. So our schedules and timing just didn't work out. And there was an article that came out in AP article by Jay Reeves in April that talked about this, because it was sort of disclosed, someone disclosed that we, were looking for the warrant, right? So we kind of kept that quiet because we wanted to not impede any of the progress that we thought.
Or get it stolen and burned up and lost again, right? Yeah.
Exactly. But AP, if you look, and I can even send you that article, Al,
please.
Came out in April. So we're like, okay. But anyway, so our schedules clicked. We assembled a team and we went back. We went back June 20th, my team from Minneapolis. And then we were joined by our ambassador out of Mississippi, Melissa Ernest, Keith Beauchamp, the filmmaker. In fact, his movie's coming out October 7th. And this has nothing to do with the movie, if you will. It's all about that, right? So we, along with my daughter, Terry Watts, and Kali Rashid, who actually found the warrant. So we went in, we asked them, we said, okay, you searched where? Okay, we're not going to repeat that. Where likely should we search now? They said the basement. So we went in with gloves, masks, even if you see a picture of me, I've got a hat on, I've got mask, gloves, and we went in ready to search for 2-3 days.
Mhm.
Within an hour and a half, the ancestors came in
Oh.
and pointed Kali Rashid to a corner in that basement where we had ignored, because the boxes said youth files or what have you. This particular box, you all, and this is shouting, this particular box was turned backwards. So there was no identification on it. Kali walked from one side of the basement to the other. And I said, well, we already looked over there. These are child files. He pulled that one box out, took it on top of a box we were going to look through next, put it on top, and by himself just start looking through. Because I'm thinking, well, those are child folders that, or youth. He found it. He called Terry over and said, because he remembered the name of the prosecuting attorney, and he saw that name and started lifting through, just looking through this file. And then we discovered, after Terry started reading, that was the actual warrant. So we found a file.
Wow.
57 years old that had the, and I don't have it right here with me, but I'll share it with you at a later point. But it had the minutes from the minute book, it had the affidavit for the arrest, and it also have the warrant. And there was one other thing that was in there. I can't remember right now, but we were so, how can I say, excited. We screamed silently because we're in a courthouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
A courthouse, and the windows there were exposed. You could see us from the outside if you were really looking.
Mm-hmm.
Our faces would likely carry, and we're in the Delta area in Mississippi. We're looking for something that no one's ever looked for.
Mm-hmm.
We found it. Kali found it, and so we documented. We took it back up to the clerk. He certified that it was the original file. He put it in a safe. We took some certified copies of it, and here we are. So that's how it happened. And I'll tell you, I have to thank, those that came into that basement. So within an hour and a half, who
all was in the basement with you?
I'm sorry?
Who all was in the basement with you?
It was Kali Rashid who found it, Deborah Watts, me, Melissa Ernest, and Keith Beauchamp.
Okay. And Keith's an attorney? Keith is an attorney?
No, Keith is a filmmaker and documentarian.
Okay.
His movie is coming out October 7th. It's called Till. Goldberg, he's a producer with that movie with Barbara Broccoli, Fred Zolo, and others. But again, he's a justice advocate too.
Yeah.
So his role there was being a justice advocate. We were not there to document it like a, documentary or anything like that. We didn't know. We thought we would be there 3 days.
Okay.
Look.
Did he happen to get film of you guys finding it then or not? Did he?
No.
He didn't get
Only just. I got a little bit of some things, and we'll accordingly and appropriately, we'll be pulling that all together, because Al, as you know, with a family and with a nonprofit organization, it's important for us to own our own assets too.
Yeah.
So we are in the process, because we realized this was history. I mean, we didn't realize it at the time, but then later we were so overwhelmed and emotionally charged that it would not have been a surprise if anyone fainted. So we immediately called our attorney, Jaribu Hill, which you really know about her. She's one of the civil rights singers, or the singers that did the chanting and all of that back in the day, and currently is still practicing. She has a workers' rights center, the founder of the Workers' Rights Center in Mississippi. So she's just an awesome person, and I would love to have you on, or have with you, I should say.
Yeah, let's do that. Deborah, this is just amazing. I'm so glad that you're here. So glad that you are willing and able to tell the story, that you've got a story to tell. And I was receiving chills isn't the right word, but a feeling when you acknowledge that the ancestors were with you and directing you. Talk about that. What feelings, what knowledge were you in the middle of and being guided by? How would you describe that presence of the ancestors at that moment? And actually all the time, but in that moment, it was particularly present, right?
Yes, and they actually were directing Kali.
Mm-hmm.
We were, the others of us were in other places, more dutiful looking, but he acknowledged that he asked Mamie, he asked Emmett, and he asked my husband.
He talked to them.
He actually just said, show me. Show me. And he would be good to have on too, because he could describe that. Because I'll tell you, Al, we were all in our own area of amazement and just emotionally overwhelmed by it, because we never met. I mean, even though you even say, well, Deborah's, they're just out there kind of looking, they're by themselves. And sometimes we feel like that.
Yeah.
And we didn't know it was a needle in a haystack. And the circuit clerk just said, well, yeah, y'all can go in the basement. I guess he's like, do what you got to do,
Yeah.
But those ancestors led Kali to that box that was turned around. How does that happen? That was so I just acknowledged them at the time, because we felt their spirit, we felt their presence. We knew that they pointed us there. They pointed Kali there. And they took us out of our mindset, our dutiful, purposeful mindset, but more on here it is. Now, what are you going to do? And I'll tell you, even that afternoon and later that evening, we were still astonished, because here we are in the Delta area in Mississippi. We're in a hotel. This is, we couldn't tell anyone, right? We can only talk amongst ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Our team met us later. We had a melt. I'm just going to say I had a meltdown because of not, okay, what do we do? We all had different ideas and things like that. So after that meltdown, and it wasn't a good one, a good one. But after that, the answer came with the process that we needed to do, what we needed to do to move forward. That answer came. And because no one else had it, and I just suggested, they're like, let's try that. And so far, that's what we're doing. We aren't going to disclose everything, because we can't. We're in the process of pushing the appropriate authorities. We're in the process of making sure that we're trying to make sure we're doing all the right things, and we're not taking no for an answer. That's for sure. We're not.
You're going to have Dr. B singing, I ain't going to let nobody turn me around in a minute. That's what you did last week.
She'll break out in a song in a minute.
In a minute.
And I write about it all the time. I love it. It doesn't, here it comes.
And I'll tell you, Jaribu sings too. So Dr. B, you and y'all could sing together, because she's done those songs. You might even know her. Like I said, please Google her. She has done I don't want to, like the veterans of the civil rights era,
right.
Those songs. I'm probably
the movement songs, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, sometimes my words don't come together. You also just if the excitement and the anticipation, and I'll tell you, this overwhelming sense of responsibility, that I have. So I just appreciate the opportunity, and anyone that wants to sing, because look, I can't sing. That would be wonderful. We even have a woman. Last year we did something called Music for Emmett, and we had a woman, Roberta Leah, that wrote a song called Carolyn. I'm going to send that to you, Al.
Okay.
It's perfect, and she just acknowledged today. She said, "Look, you guys have agency over that. Use it however you want." So we're going to be releasing that out on our social media pages too.
Yeah, let me see it then. I'll send it over to my brother Wayne and ask Wayne to interact with it in some way or another. And you never know what can happen. Wayne used to do, when we did the shows live over at Lucille's Kitchen, we'd have the live band there, and This is the kind of interview where, as you were talking, Dr. B experienced this. The Spirit would guide the musicians to come up with the music, and the music would be a cloud that lifted the speaker higher and brought the entire audience into a space that was divine and magic, and a space of knowing and a space of being. Well, we're doing that now without the music, but there's music in our spirit and music in our interaction at this moment. And I know that that music is audible in our hearts and in our minds, and the music attunes us to a vibration of success and of completion, of fulfillment, and of confidence, of not giving up, not turning back. Let me. I think Brenda was going to say something. Brenda, did you have your hand up, or pass it? Deborah, with your permission, I'll pass the talking stick to Brenda.
I wanted to tell you, you looked awfully good on TV. I said, oh, I know her. But I wanted to tell you, first of all, how powerful it was for you to express that you knew about the ancestors. And, you know, we've done the healing circle for a while. And so we're kind of used to them coming in on this hour and guiding Dr. B to guide all of us to think about the subjects of the day. And I just wanted to tell you, I was finishing up a story called Searching for Heroes. And I was using Arthur Ashe and Ruby Bridges. And that's the little girl behind me. But one of the things that Arthur Ashe said was that you could not live in the United States and not know about Emmitt Till. And it was in the documentary that CNN had on last Sunday called The Citizen of the World. And he said what really, I think it was the Woolworth sit-ins where the students or whatever got, you know, really beat up. And then the fact of Emmitt Till, and he said it hurt him so bad because he couldn't understand the nature of people to be that mean and that hateful and show no remorse. And that was the turning point for him. And I just thought he's right. Because Al and I talk about it all the time. Al's dad tried to keep that magazine, the Jet magazine, away from him. I was on punishment for 6 months because I found the magazine. I had to see it. And none of us, Al and I, well, he'll be 75 in a couple months. I'm already 75. We haven't forgotten that feeling. We haven't forgotten. That hole is still in our heart. So I cannot even begin to imagine the family. So, Deborah, congratulations and prayers with all of your work, because it just, his spirit is like George Floyd. You know, whenever we think and complain, we think of that day when he called out for his mother. And took his last breath. So there are certain things that people inside this brown skin don't forget. Right. So I'm going to pass it to Dr. Oliver Williams.
Thank you.
Deborah, I have a presentation that I do actually while we were going through the situation with George Floyd. There was a presentation that I did in San Diego, and it was called From Rage to Reconciliation. And I went to the Getty Pictures and, you know, ended up taking, you know, information and situations that Black people found themselves in when we were getting lynched and killed like your cousin. And had Emmitt in the videos and your aunt as we were sort of going through it. And there's a book that I found called The Black Americans by Milton Metzer, and it talks about the history in their own words of Black people throughout history from one period, mostly in the 1800s to the early
You can
90s.
hold it up if you can show it to us.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
you have to hold it up into the camera. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that book is this book is the fact that it has people that were slaves and people, Black folks that went through something, telling the stories in their own words. This was one passage that I thought was very, very powerful. And the thing that was powerful to me is, and it's by Harper and Row Press, is that they're telling stories about their experiences, but they're trying to have human conversations with people that have been their tormentors. And what's interesting is, like, as a human being, you can listen to it and then say, "Well, I get it." What was interesting to me is that as he tells these stories and these assumptions that these tormentors have about who is telling the story, they don't get what they've done wrong. And what happens is that there's supposed to be some level of understanding in terms of the people that are the tormentors, and acceptance of what they've done. Just like when I reviewed the stuff with with Emmett, and they showed the trial, and they showed the funeral that happened in Chicago with your family, but they showed the trial with the all white jurors, and then the men that were guilty, and then their wives. And the thing that was fascinating is they acted like they did nothing wrong, that it was fine, even though they may have admitted to some of this stuff, but they were found not guilty. And those things are things that one carries with them. Is like what Deborah mentioned, is the thing that she found that was challenging for her, and what she carried from back in 1955 till now. And I absolutely understand it, and things that I think that we deal with in terms of insults and challenges in our lives that we carry with us. And getting referring to the topic, we can't go anywhere. The question becomes, how do we heal from that? And I think what you're doing, Deborah, with regard to carrying on with this case to be able to find justice is one way to be able to do it. And then finding accomplishments in terms of what we've been able to do, given the challenges that we've been faced with, is another way to be able to heal. And I think the other thing is to continue to tell the truth, and to find the challenges, but also keep living with those ways to be able to resolve them is another way to be able to heal, from it as well. And then talking it out, having this conversation with you, talking about the steps that you've taken associated with it is another way to be able to heal. And there's many more. We need to continue to count it off. But with that, I pass this talking stick back to Dr. B.
Thank you so much, Brother Oliver, and my dear sister Deborah. I always, as you know, I've always just adored you. And it's not just because you've fought so hard as a woman warrior, but you've loved equally hard. And your fight is bigger than this case. And this case is bigger than the death of one person. Because Emmitt Till symbolized the Emmitt Till in all our lives. And the fact that his mama had the degree of courage to let the world see how ugly the world has been toward us and an innocent child like him. So I'm grateful that you are, like they say, in no ways tired. Even if you get tired, people don't know it because you keep on fighting. And so today, when we think about, I think about when we were little, when we'd act a fool in public, my mom would say, we can't take you nowhere. Can't take you nowhere because you're going to act a fool. And what I learned now is can't take you nowhere because somebody else going to act a fool. Whether it be the police, whether it be discrimination in other areas in the workplace or wherever we go. I just thought about all the places that are now unsafe because of hate. And those places are movie theaters. We can't step into them like we used to. Getting your hair done, not like you used to. Stepping into spaces like churches, like you used to. Because all of those places are being so polluted by hate. But what I know is that above all that hate is the thing that I see you carry. And you used to do that workshop all the time, loving yourself from the inside out. So even this fight for Emmett Till shows love to him, shows mothering to him, and it shows the community that we matter. And that in itself is an act of love. And it's been painful to carry that all these years for decades upon decades. And to get to this space where you can speak truth to power and hold that system accountable. To me, that honors our brother, that gives our little brother peace, knowing that the victory will eventually be won, even though we have to have stops and starts. So I think about, the young man that was recently killed. I think his name was Jalen. What is his last name? Jalen Ward, I think. Yeah. And so for him to run from the police because he was afraid, they had to understand that when they show up in front of us, the history of Black people being policed by white folks is not very good in our world and in our communities. And it's as if white police either don't care that you're afraid of them, and they really hit that space of over criminalizing us. And we go through this process that I keep bringing up called mental side. Mental side. That is the principle, the process by which one human being kills off the humanity of another. And that process of mental side is one that we see in serial killers because they don't see people as human beings. And these mass murderers who see other people as less than human, not like them. The thing that's the part that enables one human being to be cruel to another. That process of mental side, killing off your humanity. And I see it on the rise. I see it in everywhere I turn, whether it be the decision of Roe versus Wade, or whether it be the look now on people who are gay and transsexuals. It's whatever they think is not white, middle-aged male. Our society tends to be gravitating that way because of the president we had who served as a conduit. He didn't bring it. He just put the volume up on it, and he empowered that mentality, and it's taken root like a cancer. But at the same time, I'm happy that there's pushback. I'm happy that we have the power in ourselves as a Black community to continue to protest, to continue to dig in those boxes and find the truth. And with that, I just say, I'm glad that you've done what you've done. I support you. We all do. And you've just been a light to us, sister. a light in a very dark experience that's been in the past. So I pass this to Brother Al.
Well, Michelle Madison is a regular listener. Thank you, Michelle, for her note. She says, I wasn't born in 1955. However, I have a son and 3 grandsons that could also be victims of racism such as this. We must not let history repeat itself, although many Black young people experience modern day lynching all the time. Great show, Brother Al McFarlane. Thank you, Sister Michelle, for being yourself, being who you are, and for watching and encouraging and supporting. I want to spend the rest of the time with Deborah, asking you, Deborah, to focus any way you want to on what we can do, what we should be doing, what the work of the foundation is, and how all of our communities can line up and connect and strengthen the work and move us towards the objectives set out for the mission that you're on. I'm going to pass the talking stick to Brenda, and wherever you want to take it, not Brenda, to Deborah. Deborah, wherever you want to take it, please go ahead.
Well, Al, I'm not you. That's a huge question, and thank you though for the opportunity. But I have to say, community is the solution, and whenever we are moving into these kind of spaces, we need young people's voices. Mm-hmm. We need them because they're going to be the benefactors of our thoughts, of our solutions. And if they're not a part of that, then I just think we are missing an opportunity because they are going to inherit everything that we do. So
you should have, can Terry jump on the call quickly?
I don't know. I wish one of my youth ambassadors could, but Terry's moving on up there in age. But anyway, no.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I'm a teenager, but that is my daughter. But she's going to move. No, but wonderful thoughts. I mean, if it wasn't for Terry, being a warrior also in her own, making sure that we stay relevant and these connections on social media and all those platforms. As you even mentioned, Al, we'd just be out here, with a couple signs. We started with the Never Again movement and pledge, with the pledge. But this pledge, young people came up with, not us. And the image we came up with was graphic. They selected this. This was their message. So, but we'll have to probably do this again. I have to see. Yeah. She might be promoting this right now.
Yeah, she's in the chat. I've seen her put things in the chat. But thank you, Terry. Thank you, Terry. Yeah, let's do it again. I think this is. We want to just stay connected to you and to this work, and be supportive and praise you for the tenacity and for the the fierceness that you've developed and the courage that you show. What you've done is courageous. And thank you so much for doing that.
You took us to the basement. I can visualize it. We went there.
Yeah.
And it was awfully, awfully powerful, Deborah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, and we did that for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because this is humanity that we're talking about. This was one that, there were many people and young people that were lynched before Emmett. Mm-hmm. We're not saying that Emmett's it. But if we have this opportunity, we think we can be on the pathway to healing. Now, I am not so committed to this reconciliation yet until we have an opportunity to heal. We do have legislation. Mm-hmm. Not only are we in the basement, we're also at the Capitol, and we have a bill that's called the Emmitt Till Victims Recovery Program. Mm-hmm. That is because of the trauma and the generational pain that not only our family, but all the other civil rights era families and the families like the Daunte Wright's family, the George Floyd's family, and others. No one is actually dealing specifically with that pain. So Dr. B, this is a space and a place that I'm trying to make sure that our government recognizes, and they put forth the resources intentionally to provide culturally specific health and wellness opportunities specifically in these state-sponsored type incidents that occur. Ruth Richardson carried that bill for me. It was heard in the House. Didn't get much of a hearing in the Senate, but we're still going to push that forward too. So not only do we do scholarships with the Emmitt Till Legacy Foundation, because we believe young people are important, we do, and we will resurrect Loving from the Inside Out, which is a women's empowerment symposium, because women we hold up half of the world. If we don't love ourselves, we can't make the right kind of decision, to move forward in our lives. We can't have the courage that Mamie Till Mobley had. We also recognize other women that had that similar kind of courage. It may not be the jobs, but they've done something outside of themselves that they need to be recognized for. So in addition to that, we show our documentary, Who Killed Emmitt Till? And we give an opportunity for the audience, not only our elders and those Emmitt Till generation, but young people to engage with us around Emmitt's story. And as someone said, we don't want this repeated. The reason why we're doing this, we should not be sitting here talking about this.
That's right.
No other mother, grandmother should be worried about their young child or their that next generation experiencing what Emmitt experienced.
That's
but
right.
Something's wrong here. Something's wrong because those things are still happening.
That's right.
So moving towards reconciliation, I just challenge people to say, okay, who gets to decide that? You expect me to do that, and you can't do it for me. So until we do the work, until we join together as community, include our young people who are benefactors of our work, we cannot move towards reconciliation yet. The other thing I do want to say too is that there's a lot of profiting off of our pain, not just ours, but other families, authors, filmmakers, and others. And so I do understand that everybody has an agenda. I'm not trying to ruin anybody's agenda, but I have one too. And mine's about exactly what justice for Emmitt. So I work with people and there's no alignment towards that. I just said, thank you very much. This is what we're about. I'm very, very clear about that. And that's the ancestors, because I could be on the beach someplace. My grandbabies, I could be doing a whole bunch of other things, but because of that obligation, and they are powerful, these ancestors are powerful, and they're giving us everything we need. And this is also God too, I just want to make sure people understand that is the higher power is definitely working all this and revealing things to us too. So as I'm sitting here and having this opportunity, I'm feeling empowered. I'm feeling the love. I'm feeling the support. And I'm feeling that we can move forward. Now, yesterday, I may not have been feeling that. I'm telling you, it's not, this is a up and down kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm human. And this pain and this trauma is real. And these other families are experiencing it too. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. And I hope that we include young people's voices, in how we move forward, because they're driving things and we don't even know. And they're not equipped, some not equipped to drive the car right now. They need the manual and they need to know the bumps that we've had. They need to know and to maybe come up with those ways we can get around it, because we've not done everything, right? I mean, we're going backward. Yeah. How did that happen? So we can't take us anywhere. Is that what the topic of the show is?
Yeah. And so, putting truth before reconciliation.
Yeah.
And then reconciliation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me pass the talking stick to Dr. B to wrap it up, Dr. B.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Sister Deborah. Okay, there we go, because I like all this to be on the end. I just want to say, in my spirit, I feel full too. And I hear the drumbeat of my ancestors, as of all of our ancestors, as we sit here in circle, saying, that's why we were born. That's why you are there. That's why I lived. You are my hope. You are my dream. You will make the world right. And as I listen in my spirit to that drum beat, I know that every encounter we make, if it's filled with the love that's shown by my sister Deborah, that it's not a fear, but a fierce love that empowers us as a community to overcome, and knowing that eventually we will get there. And folks may think what's done in the dark won't come to light, but you're a living example of that truth.
Yeah.
So with that, I say, Ashe. We remember who we are and where we came from, and we're going to keep on keeping on so that we can go somewhere.
There we go. Thank you, everybody. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Take care. Thank you, Deborah.
As always.
Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Dr. B.
Best of luck.
Bye-bye. Great.